Hey everybody, it is Quickened, and today I'm like, I don't want to say that I'm telling a story. I don't want to say that like this is a story time video. Although I guess like technically I'm about to tell you something that happened to me. But today I want to talk about how like a series of events happened that led me to really have lost a ton of faith in my local government. And almost like made me more scared than I already was. And I don't want this to seem like, I don't know. I don't want it to seem like I'm being super dramatic or that I'm framing myself to be a victim, because this is a lot of language I've seen on videos like this before that I've made. And I like wanted to make this video up until like this morning when I had a lot of doubt, because I was like, well, what are the repercussions of this video you're about to make? And I had to think about that critically, because I am like a person on YouTube, one, and a person who lives in my community. So what is the potential backlash of me talking about an event that happened in my community? I'm going to get into it and kind of talk about my feelings throughout. So the other day I got this haircut. And however you feel about the bangs, do not say anything mean in the comments, because I think Josie reads them. So I went to get this haircut the other day, and I was riding, like doing errands, went to my P.O. box, and then I was riding home. So I'm riding home around rush hour, and I'm riding away. I've ridden 100 times. And I cross over like a major intersection, and a car turns in behind me and is just like laying on the horn. A lot of streets in Philadelphia have bike lanes, and then some smaller streets, like not major streets, have like a share lane where you'll see signs that say like share the road, and there's like cats. I swear these are the roads I get in the most trouble in. Like when I used to commute to like downtown when I worked at the market, all of the roads leading to the market are like these share lanes, and it's kind of these lanes where drivers do not have any tolerance for bike riders or like bike commuters. And it's kind of these lanes that I get in the most trouble with, like being a bike commuter. Generally my commute, I try to eliminate these roads, because although they have signage that says like share the lane, it's the drivers who really don't have much of a tolerance for this shared lane. But the thing about these roads is they're always like inner city, so the speed limit is usually very low. So it's kind of like, I feel like a joke between bike commuters that these cars can't really go much faster than us anyway, but it's just us being in the lane that they have no tolerance for. So I'm riding in this shared lane, and this car behind me is just like laying on the horn. Beep, 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 beep. There's nothing I can really do, and the other cars in front of him have casually gone around me with a lot of ease. And even if he couldn't get around me, like if I was taking up the full lane, which is something we're legally allowed to do in Philadelphia, you can take up the full lane and just drive like with a car in front of you and a car behind you and just flow with traffic down these side streets that are usually like a block and then a stop sign, a block and then a stop sign, a block and then a stop sign. So this guy, for whatever reason, is particularly upset that I am riding my bike in a place where I can legally ride my bike, close to, like, it was rush hour too, so a lot of people were getting out of school, like getting out of college, that kind of school, like a lot of commuters. It's also been nice out. I wasn't the only bike around. Like, I'm trying to paint a picture. I was one of a dozen bike riders. So I get to the next intersection. Like I said, it's a block and then a stop sign, a block and then a stop sign. I get to the next intersection, and this dude just like laying on his horn behind me, cursing and stuff. I go wide in the intersection so he can get around. And as I go wide, he rolls down his window, and I hear him say like, "Fuck you." So I go to look at him, and as I go to look at him, he just spits all over me. And it's one of those spits where he like winds up. And what am I supposed to do? Like, to dodge it, I would have to jump off my bike and risk injury. I had come from my P.O. box, so I had like packages and stuff, and I just imagined if I fell, I would have damaged them. In the moment that he spit on me, you know, I've gotten into altercations with drivers before. Over the summer, I tweeted about a woman who drove me off the road into the sidewalk, and, you know, that just kind of happens. It happens all the time. And the woman, you know, the sidewalk woman, like, fuck her. But I was actually in a road that had 2 lanes. So not only did she have no right, but, like, she rode behind me to a point where I had to jump onto the curb. In this instance, you know, it's almost like I'm seasoned to it, but you're never in the mood for it. Spit though, spit has never happened. I've never been spat on. Like, I just can't even tell you. I've never ever cursed, frightened, like pretended to drive at me kind of thing, but never spit. So this man, like, I'm not going to describe him to you because I don't think that's important to the story, like what he looked like. But it was important to the police what he looked like. So without like describing what he looked like, I made it like a judgment, like a 0.5 second judgment that if I did anything to this man, a man who would, with like no hesitation, spit on like a young woman, I made the decision to not retaliate. You know, I've knocked on people's windows, I've pulled ahead in traffic to be like, what's your problem? But I made the decision in 5 seconds not to do anything to this man, not to draw more attention to myself. You know, I was kind of in a neighborhood where I just felt like I made the right decision. So, you know, before you think critically about what I could have done, you know, what, like, I could have smashed out his mirror, I could have knocked on his door. My friend Ryan had this story where this guy was beeping and beeping at him, and he was like, roll down your window, and he spit a Jolly Rancher at him. You know, there's a ton of good stories, like, in my mind of things I could have done. But honestly, in that moment, I was like, I fear for my life, because literally this man spit on me, and I was like in his way for like a block, 1 block, and then I went wide so he can go around. So I didn't do anything. And you know, you can do whatever you want, but I also feel like one of the things that dictates a lot of my actions is that I am in the public eye. Like, I'm not famous. I'm like a D-list YouTuber. However, you know, if something were to happen, like, what does the news do? The news always says, like, local adjective gets into altercation. And I'm like, what am I even about? And it's so easy to figure out me. You can do a little research, figure out where I work. My safety is just, like, more at risk, and the actions I have publicly are just different than maybe you or, like, a different civilian or, like, even my brother or my friends. So no, I didn't retaliate. In that moment, I was actually stunned and started crying. Yes, I cry all the time. Maybe you don't. Maybe I do. So I started to cry, pulled out my phone and took a bunch of pictures of his car. Took some pictures of him, pulled over, and immediately called the police. If you're someone who doesn't call the police, generally, you know, I don't know how you operate, but in that moment, I felt like my safety, like I said, was really at risk. I took a calculation of, like, what just happened to me and who this man was and how somebody who could not wait 1 block to get around someone would spit on them in a shared lane, commute home in an area where you cannot go over 10 miles an hour to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck is that guy? Like, I was just like, oh my god, that's a sociopath to spit on someone. So I called the police. So while I called the police, you know, I was on the phone with them for like under 5 seconds. They were like, where are you? Can you wait there? And I said, yes, yes. While I waited for the police to come, I took some images of the spit. The first people I contacted, I'm in a group chat with the shampoo girls at my job. So in the group chat, I was like, yo, this just happened. And they were like, take pictures. So I took some video of the spit. Like, I just had my hair done, so like such a bummer. It was on my jacket, and I pulled my bike over. I was like pulling it out of my hair. It was like really sad. Like, it was really fucked up. And then I called John. I was like, hey, I'm waiting for the police. I don't know when they'll come. In total, I waited like an hour and some change for the police to come, just like waiting on this corner, like basically where it happened. They said, stand there, and when you see the cop car, just like wave them down. So I did that. When the police officer came, she asked me to like describe him. That's what I did. She asked me like what happened. She asked like why. And there was like just some questions I couldn't really answer. Like, she was like, were you in his way? And I was kind of like technically, like, yes, he felt like he couldn't pass me, even though other cars did and were. I wasn't deliberately in his way. Like, I wasn't taunting him or anything. I literally wasn't thinking about him. I just had a haircut, wanted to come home. I wasn't in his way on purpose. So, like, questions like that made me feel like I was almost incriminating myself, or, like, that I put myself in that situation. So I felt almost the need to, like, defend myself as I was answering. And it kind of, like, it gives you more understanding of, like, how people get in these situations. Like, immediately I felt really defensive. I was like, no, I wasn't in his way on purpose. And then she was like, where were you going? Do you always go this way? Like, are you a college student? Like, questions like that I felt kind of weird about. So after that, she was like, well, I can't give you the police report because it costs $35. I didn't know that. I never knew that. Not that I wanted the police report, like, to keep, like, for some weird thing, but you needed the police report to continue what you were doing. So she gave me this, like, I have the paper downstairs. It's like the serial number. So she gave me a serial number, and she said that I had to take that number to the Philadelphia DA's office to continue, continue the charges. I don't really know, like, I have never been spat on and then called the police before. I've actually, like, never really had to call the police outside of, like, a car accident or things like that, so this is the first time I called the police on, like, charges of assault. I thought about what I was gonna do. I, like, texted the shampoo group chat, and they were like, get him. And honestly, that's how I felt, too. I felt like I had a responsibility for, like, bike commuters and bike activism in Philadelphia. I honestly think we should be allowed to ride our bikes without being spit on. Like, you can honk at me, like, I get it. Sometimes people will honk to, like, let you know that they're passing you. And, like, I don't hate that, but sometimes people honk because they hate you. They hate you so much, and they're, like, letting you know. I had, like, this window washing service. It's called, like, Jenkintown Window Washing. They wash all the buildings downtown. One time this guy was honking, and he's like, that bike isn't doing you any favors. I wanted to be like, I don't ride it because I'm trying to lose weight. I ride it because it's my form of transportation. So I decided to, you know, do what the officer told me. The next day, I go to the DA's office in downtown Philadelphia. I park my bike, and they actually open an hour later than the police officer told me, and, like, gave me the piece of paper for, like, going to the DA's office. So I wait in the DA's office for 1 hour. So I'm doing all of this really early in the morning, before I have work at the hair salon. So I wake up really early, go downtown, and there's, like, this episode, I think, of Parks and Rec where they have to work on, like, this one floor, and it's, like, decrepit, and, like, the lights are flickering, and, like, everything's really weird. This idea from Parks and Rec is not too far from the truth. Like, in the DA's office, there was actually a sign taped to the wall and then they painted over the tape so you couldn't tell that it wasn't like adhered to the wall, but you could tell. Everything smelled really wet and then dried, like a flood may have occurred at some point. There was a point when I was talking to the DA where someone interrupted to say that they were out of toilet paper again, and that it was like someone's turn to go to the dollar store to get more toilet paper. So the DA's office, like, they're not even being provided toilet paper. They have to buy their own out of pocket. It reminded me of like teacher strikes or something. So I go to this office that just like smells wet and is like clearly underfunded. And I'm first in line because I got there an hour early. So I filled out some paperwork, and it was a sheet with like, I don't know, like 20-point font that only asked me a couple questions. They asked for his name, they asked for his race, they asked for his address, and then they asked for a brief description of the altercation. So I wrote his driver's license number because that was all I had, a description of him, and briefly what happened, which was like comically like, I was riding my bike and he spit in my face. So while I was there, there was a woman there who, I guess her tires were slashed, and she was there to pursue charges. And I remember like she didn't have the person's full legal name, and I remember like overhearing, and they were like, there's nothing we can do. And I was like, shit. Then there was another woman behind me who also seemed like she had a pressing situation as well, where she was in a fight, or like she was jumped, and she was able to get the one of the two people's first and last name. I remember thinking like, I'm in this woman's way, like little idiot got spit on, when there's like all of these other serious things being funneled into this one, all of us have to talk to the district attorney. But I was first. So I told her what happened, and they asked me like a ton of questions that like weren't on the piece of paper. They asked me if I was delivering for like a food service, like a bike delivery, because I guess that is like a different set of charges if I was like on the clock or whatever. They asked me if I was a college student, and then they asked me where I was coming from, where I was going, why I was on that street. They asked me what street it was. They started to say things like, oh, that's kind of a narrow street. That's a particularly narrow street. And I was just like, yeah, but I'm allowed to ride on it, you know? They asked me what like kind of traffic was going on, stuff like that, kind of to get a scene. And again, I felt really defensive. I was like, I'm allowed to ride there. He's not allowed to spit on me. So after all of that, they were like, what would you like to see happen? And I was like, I don't know. The police officer yesterday told me that these were the series of events that needed to happen. That after the police report, I had to come to the DA's office. They basically told me that without a first and last name, the DA process stopped right there. They said I could go back to the district in which the incident happened with a new certificate from the DA, which I ended up getting. And they said with that certificate, I could go back to the district and they could run his plates. She said, unfortunately though, if the car is registered to a family member or someone else and it comes up not the description of him, she said the investigation kind of stops there. They said if his name does come up, they would print out pictures and I would have to pick the right man for the investigation to continue. She said I had the option of privately investigating, which I thought was insane, but I guess that's why people hire private investigators, because the DA needed all of that information that I couldn't provide. In my mind, I honestly thought that I was doing something slick by getting a picture of him and his car and his I wasn't, like, his license plate. It kind of stopped there. The DA said that we don't have the ability to run these numbers. I know that you can kind of Google somebody's license plate and stuff like that, but it just seemed like I had to stop there. While I was at the DA's office, all of the filing cost $40. So it was $40 to fill out that paperwork. She told me if I ended up getting his address and I ended up doing all this stuff and everything somehow worked out, the most that he would see happen to him is that he would get a fine in the mail. So really defeated, I had to decide, like, do I want to go through all of this? Do I want to pay $30 here, $40 here for this guy to just get a fine in the mail? She said that pushing, shouting, and spitting in Philadelphia doesn't go to court. It doesn't hold up in court. She said it just, like, obviously holds up the people behind me in line, the tire slashing, the lady who got into a fight. Like, me being spit on in the eyes of the district attorney is kind of like a waste of her time. And I understand that, like, as an adult, I get it. I wasn't just like, I demand justice. I was spitted. I recognize that other people, obviously, in the city of Philadelphia have more pressing matters. But at the time I left, there was a line out the door. So, obviously, I had to decide, like, okay, am I going to go back to the police district and do X, Y, and Z? Probably it's going to cost money for me to run somebody's plates. Or do I just go home? And a guy spit on me. And he spit all over me and, like, ruined my day and made me cry and upset me and, like, upset my friends because, like, I was injured and there's nothing they can do. It's kind of a really disheartening show of, like, local authority and government that, like, not only did I have to jump through, like, all of this fucking tape to seek my own justice, but it kind of stopped there because it wasn't worth it in the eyes of, like, an oversaturated criminal system. I had to do all of the footwork, which, like, I kind of understand, but at the same time, like, I had to go from writing the police report to going to the DA's office to going back to the district that the police report was written in, and then I had to go back to the DA's office if I would have got the information. The DA can't fill out any paperwork without somebody's first and last name. That's really frightening to me. Basically, if a stranger comes and beats the fuck out of you and you call the police, they're gonna tell you, what do you want to do? When I sat at the DA's office, she told me, what do you want to do? What do you want to do from here? So, yes, I could have pursued, like, figuring out who that man was just so he could get a fine in the mail, if that's, like, if that happened to be his car and if that happened to be his address. Like, I moved and I haven't, like, changed my address yet on some of my, like, identifying documents. So if I put a spin on that dude, your best bet would be finding me on Instagram, not, like, going through the legal system. So after all that, you know, I had to decide. I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I pursue all of this stuff? And then what else? Like, how much of my safety do I put at risk being, like, a public figure? Like, not to say that that man, like, knows how to navigate Instagram in a way that, like, he can find me. But I shared a story on here once about how, like a high school age kid came and, like, grabbed my ass. And when I told John, he was like, you have to pepper spray those kids. And I told him, like, if I pepper spray that kid, it's not done, because that's the way I commute. So the next day he comes back and he makes it worse. So if I were to pursue this man and he decides, like, I can spit on whoever I want, who is this girl? Like, I'm so vulnerable in that aspect. So that is what happened from beginning to end. Like, a man spit on me, and when I called the police, there was nothing I could really do. A lot of people reached out to me and they were like, spitting is considered assault, and until I went to the DA's office, that's exactly what I believed too. But if you maybe live in the suburbs, yeah, maybe it is assault. But in Philadelphia, they have to prioritize things that are happening, and to me, they said, your shit can't go to court. Like, someone just spit on you. They didn't say get over it, but they were like, you weren't at work, you were just riding home on a narrow street, and somebody didn't like it. it's really disheartening, but when you sit me down and tell me that, like, I'm an adult, I get it. I can be like, yes, I understand your job isn't easy. You have no toilet paper. It smells like water in here. It was a really sad place, and the whole time, I felt sad for the system. And I just thought about like how much money Philadelphia doesn't have, and how every step of the way I had to spend $30, $40. The people who were there too, who had also experienced assault, they were spending money for their justice. And like, yeah, you get a court-appointed lawyer or whatever, but all along the way, they're like nickel and diming you as well. So obviously I decided to go to work that day, and I decided I could wait around and pursue justice so this dude could get a fine, or I could go home and make YouTube videos and just get back onto my life and not waste all this time. I heard my grandmother's voice in my head like, stop wasting all this time. And that's what it came down to. It came down to, was this worth it? Like, no, I don't want to be spit on. I don't want my friends who are bike commuters to get spit on either. And like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'd love to seek justice on this man. But if I decide to ride home that way again, and the same man sees me again, and he remembers that I sent a fine to his house, and he's someone who is like willing to fucking spit on me, you know, maybe he's gonna drive a little closer next time. These are all things I was thinking about, and yeah, my grandma's voice in my head, is it worth it? No. If I lived in the suburbs, maybe. If I didn't work like 6 days a week, maybe. But I'll just never ride home that way again. And it sucks because I wanted to have faith in that neighborhood, and I wanted to have faith in my local government, but yeah, I don't. Like, that, it's fucked, dude. Like, that happened, and I have nothing to say to you guys. Like, this video is just for your ears. I'm not seeking any additional information, and I'm not seeking like a resolution. I've already decided my resolution. He got away with it, and if he decides to do it again, he'll continue to get away with it. And if someone sees this video and decides to spit on me, they'll get away with it. Like, that's just like where we're at. You decide to live in a city, and it's a little renegade, I suppose. That's my video. I just wanted to let you know, because until the other day, I thought it was illegal to spit on people, and it's not. Maybe this will bring some attention to local government, but why would it? You know, there are definitely pressing issues. Like, there are huge pressing issues. Literally, Quicken being fucking spit on because she was riding her bike on a narrow road and taking up a reasonable amount of space doesn't fucking matter to anybody. You know, it doesn't. It's sad. So protect yourself, I suppose. And the next time this happens, like, my rights are a little different. My rights are a little more renegade. Obviously, I'm in a position. Obviously, my safety may or may not be at more risk because it's really easy to get access to me on the internet. But hey, you know, somebody fucks with you in their car, fuck with them right back. That's what the government taught me. Anyway, I want you guys to not worry about me. I got a lot of messages about it, and in this instance, like, I'm sad about what happened, but I'm also sad about where it went. But I'm not like sad crying, I'm just like, damn, that sucks. And it happened to me firsthand. It's not a story that someone's telling me. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for the support. You know, I like sharing these videos, or like these, I like sharing my experience with you guys as someone who does live in a city and someone, you know, who just was riding their bike and stuff happens. If it feels like I'm exploiting a moment that I had, you know, these are the stories I share with my friends, and these are the stories I share with you. So, thank you guys so much, and until next time, bye.